I'm Steve Goodman, and I'm here today with Girish Saligram. And Girish, it's great to have you here with us today.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
It's really, really great to have you. You know, Girish, as you think about your experiences, what personal courage does leadership take and demand of you today that perhaps wasn't required of you early on in your career?
Yeah, it's a great question, Steve. I think we all have a set of values that we
Mm,
hold near and dear, and we manifest those in every aspect. And character is really important. But as you progress up in your career, especially when you get to a CEO role, the reality that it is so important to make sure you stay true to your values, but you have to do that in the face of a lot of public noise.
mm,
Your values are not just what you hold dear and you can keep them privately. You have to espouse them. You are the
mm,
face of the company,
yeah.
and you will have a lot of people who have a lot of viewpoints and opinions on everything you say or do. So having the conviction to do what you believe is right for the organization, to make sure you're not just pandering to whatever
Yeah.
specific group that screams the loudest, and to be able to deal with all of the criticism, all of the different viewpoints
There's
that
not much criticism as CEO, is there?
but knowing that what you're doing is what you believe is
Yeah.
best and it's in line with your personal value system
Mm.
in a very, very public environment. I think that's very, very different than at the earlier parts of your career.
Yeah, it's really interesting, right? Values
Mhm,
translate to courage, and
mhm,
I love that point.
mhm,
I love that point. And I think that leads us to the second question, right?
mhm.
Given that we live in a pretty complex world, right? What should companies be aware of around a leader's capability to lead in complexity?
Yeah, look, that's such a profound question today. Every day is a new unprecedented
Mm, yeah.
challenge, and so to me, companies have got to make sure that we are giving emerging leaders the opportunity and the empowerment to be themselves, to deal with situations, giving them enough guardrails so they don't
Mm,
fall flat on their face and create enterprise risk, but putting them in different situations, bringing them along, making them part of the conversation, soliciting their ideas and their views, seeing how they perform under these periods of duress versus saying, hey, I'm going to shield you from this. Because once you get into this role, especially in today's day and age, it is just a nonstop barrage of change. It change is the only constant, so to speak. And then every day feels like something that's never been thought of before that would happen is happening.
your point is I think a very profound one because as I work with executives and help so many of them transition to become CEOs, values become an important part of who they are.
Yeah.
And even more so, it's around adult development.
Mhm.
And those who are self actualized can live by a set of values
Correct.
that guide them through the complexity.
Right.
Right. And so being able to help them identify who they are, what really drives them, and allowing them to shape
To
themselves.
shape that. And you need to do it in a way where you have
Mm,
someone to go to advice for guidance, but you know that you're empowered, you're accountable always, but you're also empowered to take decisions, and someone's going to help you if you do stumble.
mm. Yeah, so that leads to the next question, and as you think about the value that can be created by doing CEO succession correctly, right?
Mhm.
What's the value that is created, and alternatively, what value is destroyed when it's done wrong?
Yeah, it's one of these things that is very difficult for CEOs sometimes to think about and for boards to think about, but it's so important. I think the value that gets created is, first of all, you actually create a diversity of opinion and thought as you're going through that because you look at different people, you look at different ideas, and you actually try to figure out what is best for the organization for the future, which sometimes is very different than what you've had up until now.
Mm.
Sort of the old view of, past performance is not a guarantee of
Yes,
future
yes.
success. So you need a difference. I think the importance of business continuity, of stability is incredibly important. When it's not done correctly, that's what manifests in a very unfortunate way through the organization, creates angst, it creates anxiety, it creates discomfort, which ultimately becomes a distraction and drains productivity and leaks value from the organization. But done very well, it can be a sign of confidence, it can be a sign of empowerment,
Mm,
and it can really preserve not just business continuity, but actually enhance it through this diversity of opinion and thought that leads to better outcomes.
mm. Years we published something in the Harvard Business Review, and in that was an analysis of the impact of bringing someone in from the outside
Mhm.
or someone internally promoted. And when there was significant change, transformation that needed to happen, there was much greater preponderance of value that was created by bringing someone in from the outside.
Mhm.
But when the challenge was not to transform, but it was to continue on, bringing someone in from the outside
But
destroyed value,
right.
right? What's the cost in your mind of not doing CEO succession right?
Yeah, so I think that's what it is. I was someone who came in from the outside into an organization that was going through tremendous transformation, and I think required that. As I look at now, an organization like us, we've got a strategy, we've got a roadmap, and so things that are well in motion. You want someone who will enhance that value, not come in, struggle to understand why the company works the way it does. What is the culture? What is the fit? What is the chemistry with the leadership team? It just creates a lot of chaos, and that chaos can slow you down. It can lead to a competitive disadvantage. It can lead to
Yeah.
poor performance, and I think that's when you leak value.
Girish, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for stopping by.
Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you.